it. It's a bitter-sweet moment for me. I've had this car since 2001. I actually purchased it August 25th, 2001. A lot of y'all ask how I remember that date because it was the day that Aaliyah died in a plane crash. We had just picked the car up down from Bellamy Strickland Chevrolet down to McDonough. And as soon as we picked it up that morning, went to get insurance, picked my kids up. They were little toddlers at the time, drove to my mom's house, and as soon as I pulled up to my mom's house, one of my neighbors ran out and told me that Aaliyah had died. So that's how I always remember that date. I've had this car for a long time, man, a lot of history. You know, I say it's bittersweet because I got something good coming to replace it, and I cannot wait for you guys to see it. So I am gonna miss it. Had a lot of good times, but it's going to a better owner now, which I'm glad. You know, he's gonna take care of it, and he's actually gonna let me see it once he gets done with it. So I'm actually very happy about that. I didn't want it to get crushed or anything. So bittersweet, sweet moment, but you know, good vibes, good times. I love this car, man. Definitely gonna miss it. The original night. First kit, folks. Yes, I name all my cars. Great car. There he goes. Welcome back to another special episode of Life Off-Road. This is going to be a fun one today, folks. Is the car behind me, if you recognize it. You know, we shot a video about a year ago on this car. This was our 50th episode. And the gentleman who had owned this car previously, you know, me and him was talking off camera, Mr. Steve. He was thinking about selling this bad boy. And I told him, hey, man, if you're really serious about doing that, let me get first dibs on it because I would love to buy the car. So if you notice at the beginning of the video, when the video first starts, you see my black 98 Z28 being towed away and going to this new owner. Well, at the time, I knew I was getting ready to pull the trigger on this bad boy. You know, the backstory on these is, like I said, you know, back in the day, I always wanted a convertible SS. You know, that was hands down. Even before I bought my Z28, I always wanted a convertible SS. And for the most part, when this particular one came out, it was a special collector edition one. And it's built by a company called GMMG. And this is probably part one of our story, because once we leave here at the house, we're going to head over to the old GMMG headquarters. But I wanted to just give you kind of a brief backstory on this car. But, you know, it was a specialty car. I never thought I would have a chance to own one of these cars. You know, the company GMMG only built around a total of 500 of these cars. Tom Henry, as I said before in the previous video we did before, he built 32 of these cars. This is one of 6 convertibles. This is car number 10. It has 21,000 miles on it, so it's a low mileage car, truly authentic. If you want to see the full breakdown, just go back to our 50th episode video and you can see the whole spec'd out and everything in this car, because we're not going to do that in this video. This video is dedicated strictly to the GMMG Incorporated. So one of the cool things about this car is that one of the first things that people notice is the color. And that's one of the main things that really stood out to me when I first saw this car at the Home Depot where Steve worked. This color is the sunset orange metallic color. It is a GMMG color. It's a rare color, but they did have this color back in the day, so you would rarely see it. They didn't really paint many cars with this particular color, but it was a GM option. And it's a very beautiful color, man. I mean, when the sun just hits it, it just glistens. That's probably why they call it sunset orange metallic, you know, but it's a very, very beautiful color. And like I said, you know, normally all of my cars are black, but you know, to have a chance to own a GMMG car, a real one, I didn't really care what kind of color it was, but this color really, it really just stands out. I mean, everybody, even when I ride to car shows, or even if I'm just daily driving it somewhere, people always thumbs up, stop by, always ask, you know, is that kind of a deep red or is it a burnt orange? What is it? I'm like, no, it's sunset orange metallic. Very, very pretty color. So, enough talking of that. You know, like I said, the car speaks for itself. You know, I was finally able to get it. Very excited. And today we're going to take a little road trip. We're going to go back down memory lane. We're going to head over to Marietta, Georgia and visit the former headquarters of GMMG. And as that shop still stands there, it's not GMMG Incorporated no more. It's actually a landscaping company right now. So we're going to head over to the old shop and might have a surprise special guest or two, so come on, take a ride. Let's go. All right, here we go. So we are finally in my Tom Henry Camaro SS, built by GMMG. So folks, as I said before, the cat's been out the bag for a minute. You know, I purchased the car back from my good friend Steve back around December time, and coming up on a year after we actually shot the video for this car. You know, we shot it around Mother's Day last year, and like I said before off camera, you know, Steve and I were talking, and he was really contemplating on selling it. And I told him, like, hey man, you serious, Steve? Let me get first dibs on it, because I really always wanted, not only I always wanted a convertible SS, but I always wanted one of the GMMG cars. You know, these cars are sold, they're timeless, and you know, they're very rare. Like I said, you rarely see them anymore. So I was so happy that a couple of months later, you know, he calls like, hey man, you ready to buy this thing? I'm like, hell yeah. We made it work, man, and it's in great hands. We're just on our way back to the old GMMG shop right now, like I said before, because I really want to show you guys the backstory of how these cars really got created, how they got built. You know, the old shop that used to house its GMMG's operations. Very, very cool. And the building is actually still there. So just gonna take a quick trip over to Marietta real quick and you know, check it out. But I just wanted to do this quick, brief commentary as we head over to the shop of just, this is such a surreal feeling, man. I mean, to be able to have one of these cars, you know, the history behind it, I mean, it's really something, man. It really is. You know, because back then when these cars first came out, they were really expensive, and I was just in my early 20s when I first, you know, got wind of it. I just started driving for Big Brown, so I wasn't really making any kind of money yet at the time, but you know, I couldn't. Plus, I had my '98 Z28 at the time, which was perfectly fine. But you know, these cars, I mean, if you had one of these cars, you were doing something. So, you know, good things happen to good people who wait, man. That's all you can say, bro. And you know, it was God, you know, put me and Steve together. You know, this car really just fell in my lap, really, folks. I mean, I was just up in Home Depot, you know, looking for some wood, and saw the car in the parking lot, you know. But yeah, man, so, you know, I'm very, of course, obviously very happy with the car. You know, I really miss my 98. You know, that used to be my daily driver, my Z28 I had. Now, I drove that car every day to work and there. I mean, it's such a great car. And I remember when we we filmed this particular car, this just reminded me of how much I miss driving my 98, you know what I'm saying? Because these cars were so easy to drive, they were so fun to drive, and you know, you could modify them just like that. I mean, it really didn't take much to really modify these cars at all. So it's pretty sweet setup. So, you know, GMMG, man, they built these cars from the ground up, you know, they put their own spin on it and sold them to dealerships. And like I said, if you had the money to get you one, you was doing it back then. So it's fitting how time, you know, works everything out. And this car now, I probably put maybe 2,000 miles on it since I've had it. It's got about 22,000 miles right now. I think at the time when me and Steve shot this, it had roughly around 14,000 miles on it. So still low mileage car. Of course, I don't daily drive this. Every blue moon I might drive it to work here and there, but you know, it's pretty much a weekend warrior, car show warrior. That's pretty much it, you know. Take it back home, put them up, you know. So some people are asking, you know, what do I have, what type of plans do I have for this car? Well, it's funny that you might ask. You know, when these cars came out back then, they did have 3 different phases. Well, actually 5. So this one right here just has the basic phase 1 package, which is the 380 horsepower, 400 foot-pounds of torque. After talking with my good friend Ron Mowen and Vengeance Racing, used to work for GMMG, we decided to probably do either phase 2 or phase 3 package. I didn't want to make the car super loud. You know, it's loud enough. You know, we'll do a small heads and cam package in it, you know, wake it up a little bit more, but nothing crazy. Like, I don't want it to sound like my 1LE. I don't want it that loud, but you know, just enough to let you know it's there. So probably get it roughly around 440 to the wheels. I'm good with that, you know. Back then, those packages back then was probably the 500 horsepower package, 525, somewhere around there, which is more than enough for this one. And that's pretty much it. You know, I'm not going to change anything else with that. And I'm of course still leave the badges on it. So, you know, people think they can just run up on your boy, they turn around and get smoked. But yeah, man, but this is such a cool car. Like I said, these cars came out with their own persona, their own identity, so to speak. So when you saw these, if you knew your cars, if you saw that badging, or you saw the satin black tail panel in the back, or even the custom Stirling chamber exhaust, the American torque thrust 2 wheels, I mean, you kind of knew that, okay. And then of course, if you saw the individual numbers on the back of my rearview mirror or on the windshield, you knew it was a official GMMG car. So collector for sure, man. This car is really timeless, really is. So glad to be able to finally have what I always wanted. Convertible SS is hooked up the way I've always wanted. It's already lower. Like I said, I don't have to do anything to this car, really. I mean, it's set up perfect. It really is. So yeah, we're roughly about a couple of miles from the shop. So like I said, it's just right up the road in Marietta. It's not too far. But man, magnificent color, man. You know, the color combo. You know, this was, like I said before, one of 6 convertibles that Tom Henry built. This is the only convertible in this color spec. 6-speed, 373 gears in the rear. So pretty rare car, man. And we're about to pull up to the shop, so we'll see you inside. Good. Well, like I said before, folks, this is really a surreal moment because the last time this car was inside of this building was roughly over 22 years ago. For those who are wondering, we are here at Twin Oaks Landscape Group, but prior to Twin Oaks being over here, this was once the former headquarters of GMMG Incorporated that once built these cars. Now, this car right here, if you noticed before, we did a special episode for our 50th episode sometime last year on this car, and it was kind of went into short detail of what GMMG was all about, and I want to do a more in-depth story about the GMMG Incorporated. So coming here to this old shop, the building, everything still looks the same. Even if you look outside towards the back, you know, the fence line back here, this is where they used to house all the cars back here. And you're talking maybe hundreds of Camaros, Trans Ams, you know, building for the Berger Chevrolet, Dale Earnhardt Chevrolet, Tom Henry, you know, the whole nine. I mean, they all house these cars back here in the back, but they was produced inside of these walls. You look over here to the right side of the shop, and I have a few archive pictures, but you will see that on this particular side of the shop, they had roughly all the lifts and whatnots where they would, you know, jack the cars up and go to work. Along this wall over here, they had stacks of crates that would have engines already assembled. Because back then, GMMG was basically the powerhouse of just hot rodding a lot of these General Motors Camaros and Firebirds. And they was doing everything naturally aspirated. They wasn't doing those twin turbos, the superchargers, whatnot. They was mainly all naturally aspirated. So this shop really has a lot of history behind it. It's hard to believe that this car was last built in here around 2002, you know. So other than that, the shop still looks the same pretty much. So the way the story is told, from what I can recall, is that Matt Murphy started this company roughly around 1999. He had family in General Motors. I believe he did work for SLP at some point. SLP was a company that used to transform these Z28s into SS's coming out of the factory when they was produced up in Quebec, Canada. And I believe he knew some people in General Motors that was kind of higher up. So him, Matt Berger, the owner of Berger Chevrolet, Mr. Scott Settlemeyer, who is actually related to Tom Henry. Mr. Settlemeyer was the one who used to get all the allocations for the cars, and him and Matt Murphy and Matt Berger was talking about creating a powerhouse or whatnot. So that's when they assembled down here in Marietta, Georgia, and created this shop. And Scott Settlemeyer used to get all the cars, all the allocations, and all the cars would be shipped from the factory to this location, whether it be, all of them basically came in as Z28s, and then they would change them over to SS's. But like I said earlier, they weren't just adding bolt-ons. I mean, they were really going inside the engine blocks and really, you know, starting out as LS1s, building them up to LS6, you know, either reworking the heads or camshaft. They all came with a custom airlit box, and, you know, all the magic would happen then. So that's kind of roughly how it started. And this building kind of started their run roughly in the early 2000s and probably finished around 2009. And there's a lot more backstory to what actually happened with the company. Nobody knows where Matt Murphy is right now. I know there's been some people on the forums that have been trying to locate him, trying to find him. I would love to have him come on just to talk, but no one seems to know where he is. He kind of just vanished. He just kind of disappeared or whatnot. But it's a very intriguing story because, you know, word of mouth spread about these cars being produced. You know, when Matt Berger was, I believe the first runner cars were the Berger cars. They built like 100 cars for them. And then, like I said, Tom Henry was related. I believe he's cousins with Scott Settlemeyer. So he wanted to get in. He wanted a limited run of cars for himself. So they built those cars. Dale Earnhardt came in the picture because he had got wind of what they was doing out here. Plus, you know, him and Jack Roush were in a heated, you know, battle as far as aftermarket cars for their cars. Jack Roush is the owner of the NASCAR team that has Ford Racing, and they had the Roush Mustang. So Dale Earnhardt wanted to build a Camaro that would go toe to toe with the Roush Mustang. So he ordered 100 cars. Unfortunately, they was only able to produce 86 of the cars, and back then Dale Earnhardt wound up getting killed at Daytona. So he was only able to sign 33 of the cars out of the 86. I believe the prototype one went to Dale Jr. I believe Kelly got car number 2 and Dale Sr. got car number 3. But of course, back then he would have signed all his cars, but unfortunately he passed. So, but roughly all together, GMMG probably produced roughly close to 500 cars between the Camaros and the Blackbird Trans Ams. The Blackbird Trans Am was exclusively for Carl Black dealership, which is here in Kennesaw, Georgia, which is not too far from here. So they built roughly about 50 of those cars, but mainly it was roughly around 500 cars. So this is pretty much, I mean, they had their work cut out for them when they was inside of this shop. I mean, they was working night and day, and when you hear from my other guests, you know, coming on, they'll be able to further explain how the day-to-day operations used to go along here in this building. But it's a lot of history, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears out of here, man. They really created some badass cars, man. I'm so happy to have a piece of history and to kind of go back down memory lane to relive some of that history. So it's pretty cool. So. What's up, man?